Win,
Let's see it.
keep,
It's not recording.
lift. Yeah, fundraising talks. I realize that's probably heavy and a lot, but I hope we can just finish up strong today. And I wanted to kind of start by kind of staying in the Word this morning and just walking through a number of development principles from Proverbs. So if you kind of going to have to work your way back through the book again here. It's past that diagram of the pyramid. It's probably about 2/3 of the way through. It's development principles from Proverbs is where we'll be in the outline. And I love Proverbs. Luis, his dad taught him to read the proverb of the day every day. There's 31 proverbs. And one of the things that I do in my Bible, my everyday Bible, is I'll note little things in the...
I just want to see what it looks like. Oh.
Here's what it looks like. Yep. Good, you got it? You know, if it's a song that I know the song, I'll put like a little music note, you know, next to the verse, and it just kind of reminds me, okay, these are praises, these are praise songs, and it's good to, when I go back through. And so many times if it relates to fundraising or money, I'll put a $sign. Now, that's what we use, a US dollar sign. I don't know what the rest of you, a rupee sign. I don't know what the rupee sign is, but you know, put something that helps remind you it's about money. And so that's really how I created this passage, or this little teaching today, was through reading through the Proverbs and noting passages that relate to either money or fundraising, or in some cases it's planning. And so I wanted to walk us through that this morning. And so we kind of broke them down into different categories. And personal life of you, the fundraiser. Can someone read Proverbs 3, 5, and 6? It's right here on the outline.
Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take.
Yep. I think all these verses are from the New Living Translation. And so the principle there is depend on the Lord. And that's everything. And I think it's hard, especially for someone like me that's done this for a while, to try to, there's a temptation to sometimes want to lean on techniques or methods. But we need His insight and understanding, and we need to depend on Him. So the action there would be more time praying. I was talking to some folks about, we're just looking for some, like, how do we grow? How do we get breakthroughs? How do we really see the Lord move in some big ways? And I'm convinced more than ever that it is prayer. Prayer. We had a lecture in our Luis Palau Association chapel about a month ago by Pat Palau, Luis's wife. And I think it was the first time she's ever spoken at chapel. Which is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, we all kind of looked at each other and said, yeah. I mean, and that's pretty interesting too, just that point about like how she and Luis kind of viewed their roles, and she stays out of the office. The chapel's at the office, so she tends to stay out of it, but she came in and she did an amazing message on prayer. Prayer is hard work. I don't know about you, hopefully your prayer life is way better than my prayer life, but it's hard. But we need to lean on the Lord and trust Him. Proverbs 1, verses 1 through 3 and 7. Could someone read that?
These are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline.
Thank you. So there's also Proverbs 10:17 and 12:1. So the principle there is discipline. Maybe there might be a really small category of people that are just naturally disciplined, but I think discipline is something that is taught, or is not natural, it's taught. It's about focusing our energy on the right things. It's about staying focused. I know that can be somewhat challenging when you have the evangelist DNA. you wanna chase, some quick, squirrel comes by and it's like, boom, I'm down that trail. Discipline comes with focus. So discipline is a principle. How about Proverbs 2, verse 7 and 21?
He grants treasure of common sense to the honest. He is shield to those who walk with integrity. For only the godly will live in the land, and those with integrity will remain in it.
Yes. So, two things, common sense and integrity. Common sense is highly underrated in my opinion. And it's amazing how many times we want to chase after fantasies and things that just don't make sense in normal thinking. So having reasonable expectations, I think is good. And then integrity we talked about the other day. That's everything. I love that the Lord is a shield to those who walk in integrity. And when you walk in integrity, you can sleep at night before the Lord and before man. So one of the things that can be a temptation in this area of fundraising that's linked to this issue of integrity is, or common sense, both, I guess. I was just talking with Tim about this at breakfast, is sometimes you might be tempted to move away from your call of God on your life towards things that are easier to raise money for. And I would just urge you to kind of pay attention to that. But sometimes it's like you can get off your calling because you're chasing after dollars. And we've had cases where donors have come to us with, they kind of love us and have a wonderful plan for our life.
They love it.
And they want to tell us what we're supposed to be doing, and they'll fund it. If you do this, I'll write you the check. And occasionally we'll say yes to that. I think it's good to try to please your donors and serve your donors, but almost inevitably, when we say yes to things that aren't at the core of who we are and what we're all about, and we go ahead and say yes and we try to do it, the end result is sort of unsatisfying for everybody, for us and the donor. So I would just say, look out for that. and let's operate with integrity. Next page. So the next category is development philosophy. Proverbs 3, 9, and 10. Someone want to read that one?
Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. Principle, honor the Lord with your best.
Honor the Lord with your best, yes. First fruits, give God your first fruits, give him the glory. He blesses. And then also Proverbs 28, 27. How about Proverbs 11, 24 and 25?
Give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed.
And the principle, God honors generosity. We talked about this yesterday. Giving is better than receiving. Inviting people to give is doing a favor to that person, is being a blessing. So we have to ask, and we should be generous people ourselves. Development management, Proverbs 21, 5.
Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, and hasty shortcuts lead to poverty.
So the principle there is planning. And that's also found in Proverbs 16, 1 and 3 and 27, 12. Don't do what a lot of us do is kind of ready, fire, aim. That tends to be the process many times. Planning is hard. And it may or may not be something you like to do. Personally, it's not my favorite thing to do, planning. Some people love it. Some people spend all their time planning and never get out of the house, so there's a balance there. But when you are conceiving something, it is wise to take the time to think about it and to even put it on paper, even if it's in simple terms. I find that putting what I would call like a project design down on paper, it helps you to clarify your own thinking if you have to write it down. And it also creates a tool that other people can then read and relate and comment on. So, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity. Proverbs 27, 23. This is probably one of my favorite verses on fundraising. Someone want to read that one?
Know the state of your flocks and put your heart into caring for your herds.
See, that's a good one for Tim to read. And he has horses, not flocks, but or did. I don't know if he still has horses. But.
I remember Louis speaking of that in chapel. I don't know how long ago. Maybe it was 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, think of what's the application on fundraising? What's your flock? Your donors are your flock. Know the state of your flock. Pay attention to your herds. What, if you think about it, like in ministry, like that is the correlation to the farmer or I guess it's the farmer, the shepherd. The donors are our flock. We need to pay attention to them. MMDI, does your thing say MMDI?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's very internal Palau language, but that is like some of the reports that I put in the book, these are all formatted by this pastor in St. Louis, Bill McConkey. It stands for McConkey Multi-Factor Development Inventory. Okay, you don't need to remember that, but basically, we run reports on our flock frequently. Like, here's the kind of stuff that we measure. Like I told you, like we measure like how we're doing year to date and month to date every day. That's a daily report. We measure when we send out our letters we pay attention to how many we sent out, and then we keep track of how many responses came back in and how much money came in, and we measure that every time. Why? We learn from it. It might have been something like last year. We sent a letter out in June or July to our friends, and it was Luis talking about our campaign in Bogota. And it was very heartfelt, 2-page letter, very personal. And that letter was 10 times better than any letter we've sent in the last like 10 years in terms of the response. Well, we knew that because we measured how much came back from that letter. And we're doing Madrid next month. So yesterday, the Madrid letter showed up in my mailbox, and we wrote the Madrid letter using almost the exact same everything as the Bogota letter. I mean, we changed a little bit of the wording, but the format, the font, the size, because when you find things that work, we don't need to be geniuses and reinvent the wheel every time we do something. If you can look back and see how things have performed in the past, and there's all kinds of variables as to why some things work and some don't. So you have to think about it. But if you don't look at it, you'll never know. So keep track of your flock.
So quickly in summary,
Yeah.
since that was the best response in 10 years
Yeah.
to various appeals,
Yeah.
what
was
was
it?
different
Well,
than previous?
it had a bazillion things going for it. I mean, Bogota, I don't expect the Madrid one to do as well as the Bogota one. Though we sent basically the same letter to our major donors, and their gifts, they got it. We sent that one out first class, and that went earlier, and every day this week we're getting lots of money back on that package. But I think it was something about the style of it. It was very personal. Bogota was where Luis and Pat did their very first festival ever in 1966. So it was very personal to him, that city. How he expressed it was very personal. He asked pretty directly, which Luis that's just not his normal style. Is pretty soft actually in terms of the format. It felt very like one-on-one personal, and timing, project. I mean, it just had everything going for it, lots and lots of variables. I'll be happy to send you guys, if I could get like everybody's email address, I'll send, I promised something yesterday that I was gonna send you guys too, so remind me what that was, but I'll send you a copy of the Bogota. Oh, I promised to send you Amanda's support letter for YWAM. I'm gonna send that. If we have it, I hope she has it, or I don't know where, we must have it somewhere. But yeah, I mean, that's real stuff. I mean, feel free, take it, borrow it, use the same, I mean, I'll send you the letter, Mike, and I think once you read it, you'll go, yeah. I knew when we wrote that letter, I knew before it was even in the mail. And this is basically like how we process this stuff at Palau, because Jay Fordyce, who's been with our team probably almost 15, 20 years now, and I will generally meet to discuss what topics we're going to send out and when. And one of the main principles that we'll use with that is urgency. So we want letters to drop like probably about 30 to 40 days before an event, like an event with a hard deadline. And so we lay out the ministry calendar, and we're gonna look at that. I've got a little template for you in the book here that can help you guys do this, but you just kind of lay out your ministry calendar, and then we lay out the schedule for our communication. And then, you know, we'll kind of both just sort of get in a room and start getting creative about, okay, what do we know about Boga, about this project? And we'll lay out some themes and some ideas, and then usually it'll be Jay, sometimes it's me. We'll talk to Luis and get his like personal vision and color for the project, and then we'll write up a draft. And that'll kind of go through a little bit of a process between me and Jay, we'll refine it, and then that'll go up the hill to Luis. Oh, he doesn't live up the hill anymore, so he lives flat now. He moved, but, and then he'll look at it and he'll edit the letter and get it back to us. And sometimes he'll add little nuanced things to it, which is cool. And then we send probably anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 letters, and we send that to an outside printer, and we'll send them the list, and they'll actually run the letter and send it out for us. Anyway, little direct mail teaching in the middle of Proverbs here. Okay, Proverbs.
John,
Yes.
question. You talked about tracking a letter and how much comes in as a result of that letter.
Yeah.
You have your software, your database, or your program able to track that for you and print you reports.
Yeah, we do. I mean, every letter that goes out has a unique, what we call appeal code. And ours is very simple. D, which I think probably goes back to like direct mail. D, 19, the year. And then what month would be, A is January, B is February, C is March, D, E. So the March letter would be D19C. That's as complicated as we do it. And then when the gift comes in and it gets put into our software, our program, we process the gift. It's got the donor, the reply card would have the donor information. It's gonna have the appeal code. It's gonna have the fund code. So like in this case, it would be for our Madrid fund. So it would go into that fund. And it would have, the amount would be recorded based on what came in.
If you don't get the response card back and you just get the check, do you just like, if it's right after you send out a direct mail, do you guess it's with that one, or do you just put a general kind of a thing?
We actually also code the envelope, and so if it came in that envelope, we would know.
Oh, that's good.
But if it just came out of the blue, it probably would have been motivated by that letter, but we don't try to outguess it. We just put that in as sort of like uncoded at that
So you
point.
code the letter, I mean, you code the envelope. That's-
Yeah,
when did you start doing
but
that?
that's
That's a great idea.
expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, we have to print a special envelope every time.
Gotcha, okay.
And you could just code it, there's ways to do it, like, you could literally, what we used to do back in the day was, you know, the envelopes, you could kind of lift them out of the box and you could get to the end, and I would take like a colored marker of some sort.
Okay.
And I would just run it down the side of the envelope, and so I know if I got a black one, it was connected to this appeal, or if it was red, it was, you know. And so there's
That's the cheap
there's some
way.
cheap ways. There are cheap ways to do it.
I could do that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm telling you. Like, there's other cheaper ways to do that. I would not recommend printing an envelope. We probably shouldn't even do it, but we do. Anyway, I'd be happy to send you guys the report that we use to measure our direct mails. We do one of these letters every month. And so we
It's
measure.
not always to everyone, right? It might have a select group.
Yeah, and in the back of your book, and we probably won't get to it, is like a little 2 or 3 page thing on segmentation. But we don't send our letters to everybody. We send it to everybody who's given recently, and people that have given larger amounts, even more in the distant past, will continue to mail to them. But after a couple of years, if you haven't had any kind of support relationship with Palau, we're not going to be sending you 12 letters a year. So let's keep going. Proverbs 20:18. Somebody want to read that?
Plans succeed through good counsel. Don't go to war without wise advice.
And then 24:6.
So don't go to war without wise guidance. Victory depends on having many advisors. Principal Development Council.
Getting counsel. Yeah, wise counsel. There's a lot of wisdom out there in the world. And we are not the sole smart people. We think we're smart, maybe. But getting other people to speak into your strategy is good, you know, and campaigns are like going to war sometimes. And so don't go to war without wise guidance, and victory depends on having many advisors. The one thing I would say, wise guidance. So it doesn't just say any guidance. It says wise guidance. How do you choose wise guidance? You know, wise people that with wisdom. Well, look at the fruit. You know, if they have a history of fruit, that's probably someone with wisdom. So, wise guidance. Proverbs 30, verse 25. This is definitely a Luis Palau verse. I bet Tim has heard Luis refer to this one. I'll read it. Ants, they aren't strong, but they store up food all summer. Principle, build reserves. Whoa. That's a kind of a crazy thought. I mean, some people would say that's not even biblical. Well, I'm reading it right here from Proverbs. They work when the food is plentiful. They store some away. I think having some reserves. We try to have at Palau, it's actually kind of board mandated that we would have 3 months reserves set aside. Which for us is, our annual budget's about $12 million a year roughly, plus or minus. So that's about $1 million a month, $3 million. And that's about what we have. And that we'll draw that down sometimes, like when money's not coming in the door. It could go down really low. And then hopefully by December 31, when we close the books, it's back up to at least $3 million. But that's what we try to do at Palau. Proverbs 27:18. As workers who tend a fig tree are allowed to eat the fruit, so workers who protect their employer's interests will be rewarded. Has anybody worked in agriculture? I'm the only one? I worked for a summer
I did too.
for Del Monte Corporation in the island of Oahu in Hawaii, and I picked pineapple all summer. And if our gang, which is what they called us, it was almost all little wiry Filipinos, and then there was me, this big howly boy, trying to keep up with these guys. But if we produced well, we got a bonus. Del Monte Corporation understood this. And I think our staff are worthy of competition. And we need one of the actions is we need to be workers who add value. And that issue of loyalty comes in here as well. But we should share in the blessings. Proverbs 26, 6 and 10. Someone want to read that one?
Trusting a fool to convey a message is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. An employer who hires a fool or a bystander is like an archer who shoots at random.
Principle, be careful in hiring. Don't be a fool, don't hire fools. And one way to try to make sure you're not hiring fools is check references. I think we want to skip over that sometimes because we just fall in love with this person because they're so winsome and they have such a vibrancy or a heart for the Lord, and we just sort of kind of look past the kind of step of kind of talking to people that have maybe been in spiritual authority over them in the past or places where they've served or worked previously. Now, not everybody will give you straight answers on references these days in this country, but I try to spend a lot of time in hiring because I don't want to hire fools, and that's very dysfunctional if you're hiring and firing a lot of people. That can be very counterproductive. I got to read this one because this is one that came up in a cabinet meeting once with another one with Luis. Proverbs 14:4. Without oxen, a stable stays clean, but you need a strong ox for a large harvest. What's the implication?
Messy.
When you have strong, complex staff, there's a lot of mess that comes out of that situation. Don't expect it to always be smooth and easy, but build a team, and management is messy. You know, this is the basic principle that Luis has shared for years. An evangelist without a team is nothing. You've got to bring people around you with their unique gifts to really fulfill your calling, but persevere through the messes. Development strategy, Proverbs 24:27. Someone want to read that one?
Do your planning and prepare your fields before building your house.
Yeah. Wise campaign strategy or a feasibility study, you know. I mean, that's where you do need to think about, okay, who do I know that I could put this project in front of when you're kind of thinking about the feasibility of taking on something. There's faith involved here too, though. And then I'll read Proverbs 20, verse 4. Those too lazy to plow in the right season will have no food at the harvest. And then Proverbs 28, 20 and 22. The trustworthy person will get a rich reward, but a person who wants quick riches will get into trouble. Greedy people try to get rich quick, but don't realize they're headed for poverty. So the principle is invest in development programs, time and money. That's, again, it works against your evangelism DNA, but these things take time to pay off. They're not instant money machines, and it's good for us to be reminded of that, you know. Probably one of the most amazing stories and wealthiest companies in the world is Amazon.com. It took them at least 5 years before they ever made a profit. So these development programs that we invest in sometimes take time to pay off. Proverbs 12:11. A hard worker has plenty of food, but a person who chases fantasies has no sense. Avoid fundraising fantasies. So that's where we get into these crazy ROI expectations. I've seen a lot of that. Proverbs 25:14. See if anybody can relate to this in our ministry history. A person who promises a gift but doesn't give it is like clouds and wind that bring no rain. Has anybody ever had any clouds and wind?
They
But
look like
no
they're ready to
rain.
bring the rain.
There's
Oh.
never any rain. Careful pledge fulfillment is one of what I'm saying there. You know, this is a tricky thing when people pledge money to your ministry and then they don't fulfill it. There's always reasons. And I think it's upon us to talk to people about that, you know, like they need to know, for one thing, that their gift mattered. If you're not pointing out to them that, you know, you've noticed that they haven't fulfilled their gift that they've committed. If you never bring that up, then it's almost like, then, well, I guess my gift never really mattered because I didn't give it and they never said anything. And many times, obviously, financial situations change. And that can be highly embarrassing for people if they've made a commitment and they can't fulfill it. And we have to move toward people when they're in that situation because they're going to want to hide. And they may not answer the phone. And so it's upon us to express our genuine love for them as a person and our desire to continue the relationship at whatever level that is. And we've seen some pretty amazing things from people who have had trouble fulfilling pledges, and we've just kept loving them. And certain careers are very like feast and famine. People that are in like the oil and gas business, you know, they hit a gusher and they're doing great, and they have a bunch of dry holes and they're not doing good. Real estate development is another kind of one of these things that, you know, they get big windfalls and things like that. But just keep loving people. You know, we have an expression at Palau, friends for life. You know, we want to be friends for life. And so but you have to kind of pursue people. And many times if you have people that have given at a pretty high level, and for whatever reason, they're no longer able to give at that high level, sometimes they'll disconnect completely. Because they kind of have in their head like, we're gonna be disappointed in them if it's lower, or, I don't know, they just think,
Well, it's kind of the way the world works, right? You're working for a business.
yeah, you're only as good as your last,
Right. They always want you to be more.
yeah, and so that's something that we have to fight against that. We have to go toward people to overcome that. So careful pledge for
Can I ask you a quick question, John?
Yes.
So what do you do at Plow? So let's say you're with Madrid coming up, someone tells you or passing, hey, I'm gonna give you 100,000 for Madrid, I'm just picking a number. Getting closer to Madrid, you haven't heard from them. What is your process of, obviously you're ministering the person, but how many times you reach out before you kind of just, I shouldn't say write it off, but kind of like, okay, we're not gonna keep pushing this person to give their 100,000 in Madrid? Do you have is it each case different, or is it like a phone call, a letter?
A lot of times what we'll have is people that will just give, I mean, with Madrid, there's a hard deadline on that. You know, so I would push pretty aggressively, you know, to try to have a conversation. Well, you're not really trying to necessarily get the money, you're just trying to have a conversation with the person about where they're at. Sometimes it's just timing. Well, we've got all the time in the world. I mean, in one case, because like if you could still get the $100,000 by December, would you take it? Yeah.
All right.
Or hey, we might have to. So when people struggle with pledge, that's the first thing I would always offer is like, well, hey, what can we just stretch out the timing? But still have them try to fulfill the amount that they've committed. Something like $100,000. I mean, you'd be calling and knocking, and even if let's say you had to go to Madrid and you did the event, I would be contacting them from Madrid. I'd be contacting them after Madrid to just have the conversation. But we run into more frequently of people that would make like an annual pledge to pull out, like at an event. Like I'll give X thousands of dollars, by December 31, and then December 31 comes and goes, and they don't do it. And we'll reach out to them by phone, after the end of the year, and just find out. And many times they forgot. In fact, I had a funny situation recently. Phil Comer, a lot of you guys know Phil Comer. He's worked on our staff, and he's got a ministry of intentional parenting. And so Karen and I went to the intentional parenting, like their first fundraising dinner. And Phil and he asked me for a bunch of advice, like before they did the dinner. So we went to Chick-fil-A, and I just kind of went, here's what, bang, 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 bang. Here's all the things you should do. They did a lot of it. And then he called me. I think I called him, but he said, hey, we're doing our, the thing went great, and he had like 56 people that pledged or something, and there were like 17 that hadn't given anything, and it was like in December or something like that. And I said, well, you gotta, remind people about these pledges, because I'm telling you, like, people forget. And he goes, I know, you're one of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was like, okay.
You're one of them.
Yeah, I'm telling you that people forget. I told you. And here's what happens. I mean, this is one of the kind of newer things that's like a part of my life, and it's like, okay, I can relate to it. But we have a lot of people are setting up these donor-advised funds. This is a unique thing in the United States where you can give a chunk of cash money, or you can give securities or assets to a foundation. They liquidate that and they put it into a fund that you kind of have control over. And then when you want to do your giving, you give instructions to the foundation, send $1,000 to Benjamin Ministry, not personally. They'll only give to organizations. And then that enterprise sends the check on your behalf. And the letter, if you ask them to, will say, this gift is sent at the advice of John and Karen Ogle. And we have the Palau Foundation as the ability to do this. And Karen and I have a fund there. And people forget. Like literally all I had to do was say, send the gift to Intentional Parenting, bang. And I thought I did it. So people's lives are busy. There's all sorts of new things that kind of complicate life and giving. And so it's on us to remind people about their pledges. I had lunch with a guy on Thursday in Syracuse who was a part of the Syracuse Festival, which I think was in 2003 or 4, 5 maybe?
No, I think it was 2001.
Oh, was it that early?
Yeah.
Okay. He came to a President's Council
Yeah, I
in
was there.
2005. It might have been his last one. He made a pledge to Palau in 2005, 6. He got slammed with the 2008 economic collapse. He owned a Bally's Health Club there that he had to sell quickly. He fulfilled his pledge this year. 2019.
Wow.
And I had lunch with him, and he's very interested in Palau and the ministry, and I thanked him, and invited him to come to another President's Council weekend, and so I love it when people make these pledges before the Lord. Because if you do it before the Lord, you're gonna fulfill it, you better. A lot of people do it, I think, somehow in a different mindset, but reminding people about their pledges is good. Proverbs 27:2, so next page. Let someone else praise you, not your own mouth, a stranger, not your own lips. Principle, endorsements are good. Like what I was talking about, like a little page of endorsements of credible people can help people have confidence in your organization. Bringing people with you, when you're visiting with important prospective donors, some of us have boards. Having a board member go with you on a call, a respected business person.
Tim used to go with me a few times.
Yeah.
It does, it helps.
Yeah. Getting credible people from the community to be a part of your leadership committee if you're doing a local festival or an outreach. Those are all ways that endorsements can help us. Rules for reps. This is what I'm talking about in terms of our field reps and their spending time face to face with major donors. So this applies to us too when we're meeting with donors. While dining with a ruler, pay attention to what is before you. If you are a big eater, put a knife to your throat. Don't desire all the delicacies, for he might be trying to trick you. What is that?
No more steak and lobster for
What
me.
is that? What does that mean?
The steak or the lobster.
Just the steak or the lobster.
This is what my mother taught me. Let the other person order first. Do not ever order anything more expensive than what they ordered. This is not like your opportunity to, kind of go wild on the food. Like if some donor takes you to a country club or something, you're not paying if you're going to a country club because you can't pay. It's a private country club. He's buying. But the other thing, this sounds kind of like okay, but don't order sloppy food if you're out with a major donor.
Oh, my ribs now. My baby back ribs are
Now,
out.
occasionally, if you're both into it, that's one thing, okay? But you're there to present your ministry, I actually, I'm working right now. This is not my fun mealtime, though I want to be an authentic person, okay? But be careful about the food that you order. This sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, this will go better if you, so anyway, think about it. Behave at meals, that's the principle.
So no food fights.
No food fights either, yes. Proverbs 15:30, a cheerful look brings joy to the heart. Good news makes for good health. The wise are known for their understanding, and pleasant words are persuasive. From a wise mind comes wise speech. The words of the wise are persuasive. Good news from far away is like cold water to the thirsty. Principle, be a source of good news. Our donors, people that we meet with, are bombarded with bad news constantly. And I want to be a person that is refreshing. When I step into their world, I want to be a source of good news. God is working. Let me tell you some stories about how God is on the move. This is soul giving. It's refreshing. So those are the kind of people that we want to be. Proverbs 18:13. Spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. And then Proverbs 12:15. Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. principle is listen, and there's lots of verses about listening. So the temptation is to just kind of say, wow, here's my one and only shot. And to feel like we've got to just dump the whole truck on this guy in 20 minutes. And, relationships are built through dialogue. So, yes, we need to talk, but we also need to listen. We're trying to understand what God's put on their heart, and then that helps us kind of frame our message and eventually our ask. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a dream fulfilled is a tree of life. Instill hope and fulfill dreams. Discover their dream. Show that it can happen. Proverbs 17:17, a friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to help in time of need. Be a friend and be a help. Be a loyal friend. And then finally, last page, Proverbs 13:7. Some who are poor pretend to be rich. Others who are rich pretend to be poor. Discernment. And, we've had plenty of examples over the last 24 hours of examples where people that, as Karen was saying, people that, and I find this to be very true. Kind of like that guy on the Gospel Patrons video we watched last night. You'd look at that couple, you wouldn't think, wow, that couple has major gift capacity, just by looking at them. So some people like to wear all the trappings of wealth, and yet they're mortgaged to the hilt, and their net worth is they're in massive debt. Others are quite wealthy, and so we need to ask God for discernment. And then here's the close. Proverbs 21:5-25. Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Despite their desires, the lazy will come to ruin, for their hands refuse to work. Lazy people want much but get little, but those who work hard will prosper. So a final principle is work hard. Trust God, pray, hard work. These are the messages of Proverbs, and hopefully they will help guide you in this important part of our calling in development.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Why don't we do a quick break? Stand up and
5
stretch.
minutes.
A 5-minute stretch break, I think, would be good. And that's what?
They get
Increased.
more.
Yeah.
They continue to get.
These one, I was talking about the Campus Crusade staff that we support monthly. Almost none of them ever asked me to increase. So I never do.
There are some
Karen's like a little more compassionate here.
Are you
So I never do.
I'm just, but like, if they're asking in a form that isn't
Yeah.
getting my attention. Okay? So, here's an example of that. I tell this story a lot. Because we worked for Campus Crusade for Christ, we're friends with probably 25 Campus Crusade staff people. And so in December, we get 25 prayer letters that have the opportunity, the invitation to give, a special gift at the end of the year or whatever. There's some kind of solicitation in there. One guy, Mike Fox, called us. And he said, "Hey, John, how's the family? How's it going? I haven't talked to you for a while. How's it going with you? We're doing well. I'm getting ready to do this outreach at the Olympic Games. And that's like a special project, and and I need $5,000 or whatever to do it. And I was wondering if you and Karen might consider helping with that." 25 letters. Guess who got 100% of our year-end gift to Campus Crusade for Christ? Mike Fox.
Yeah, Mike Fox.
So you can, you know, all those people, if they were kind of like talking to their spouses, well, we asked John and Karen for a gift. Kinda. But there's different modes of asking, and some are richer than others. And I, you know, to this day, I mean, I just, I can't understand why these people don't pick up the phone and call me. I'm interested. I've been supporting, I support them. If you give money to something, your heart's moving toward it. So
You mentioned.
don't feel like oh, these people don't want to talk on the phone. You might not want to talk on the phone. Don't project what you want into what they want. You know, yeah, you know, at least give them the opportunity. You know, and nowadays with Skype or FaceTime and things like that, you know, that's an even richer means of connecting with these people. I don't do a lot of that yet. I should do more.